X-Men 97 revisits the iconic era of the 1990s, as the X-Men, a band of mutants who use their uncanny gifts to protect a world that hates and fears them, are challenged like never before, forced to face a dangerous and unexpected new future. That's the description for the upcoming series X-Men 97, which comes out on March 20th. After the release of the trailer, a lot of controversial opinions have been tossed around, and I wanted to give my own personal thoughts on the trailer, as well as why I believe that fans were upset with it. But before I go into that, I wanted to talk about the word woke. What is woke? Well, I'm going to give my own definition of the word because I've been in a number of arguments and in a number of videos have used the word woke, and when arguing with someone, they tend to take a disingenuous tone as soon as I use the word woke. They'll pretend like there has only ever been a single definition, and then they subvert the argument with their straw man, framing it as if being anti-woke means that by definition you are a bigot. So I'm going to give my own definition so that when you watch this video, and if you're already angrily typing in the comments about how I use the word woke in a derogatory sense, you will know exactly what I mean when I use the word. Now, I'm not speaking for others, though I would doubt that other people wouldn't find some similarities between my definition and theirs. So, woke is a term that goes beyond simply describing liberal or left-wing perspectives. It is not just a label perpetuated by corporations or media outlets to mean diversity. Instead, woke signifies a conscious, yet often criticized way of injecting social concepts in a manner that is seen as forced, preachy, and condescending. And I feel like that is a fairly concise and even-handed definition. There is much more inflammatory language I could have inserted that would have been just as accurate. But now you know what my definition of woke is, so if you hear me say it, that is what I mean. In fact, I may put this disclaimer in other videos where I use the term. But this video is about the trailer and why people reacted to it the way they did. But before I get into why other people reacted it a certain way, I wanted to talk about my own criticisms of the trailer. Now, I'm a big fan of X-Men. That's what I grew up with, as well as Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman. The series was my first foray into Marvel and superheroes in general. I've seen all 5 seasons, and in fact, when Disney Plus first launched, X-Men the Animated Series is one of the first things that I watched. So originally, I was pretty excited about this show, despite the fact that I knew that it's a modern day, probably an updated version of the X-Men. But the title said X-Men 97, so I, and I assume many others, came with the expectation that it was going to reflect the cultural attitudes of Americans in the 90s. Though from the trailer and from other information gleaned from interviews as well as the Comic-Con panel from 2022, it seems like they are definitely injecting wokeness into this series. But here are my other complaints. First of all, the look of the series. I'm not a fan of the digital versus the painted backgrounds. That's actually something that I've always been a fan of, like old anime and old American cartoons where they have like the painted backgrounds. I actually really liked that stuff. But also the animation in general. Because the 90s animation looked pretty good despite the time period that it came out in. And that's even considering the fact that Fox Kids, who had, I believe, the license for X-Men, was doing everything they could to cut corners and find, cheaper and cheaper animation studios to make this. And yet it still looked as good as it did. However, Disney, with all of their Disney money, couldn't hire a studio to do a better job than this. This makes the 90s animation look absolutely amazing. This looks like some fan made it using Flash, and I don't get it. I just don't understand how you go from the original series to this, and this is supposed to be an improvement. It's like the Dragon Ball Super versus Dragon Ball Z thing. When Dragon Ball Super came out, and it's not just my opinion, a lot of people were complaining about the quality of the art in Dragon Ball Super compared to Dragon Ball Z. Just like this, it made the Dragon Ball Z animation, which started in the 80s, look amazing by comparison. And in fact, I would argue that anime has really gone downhill in animation quality since the early to mid 2010s. So the animation went from looking pretty damn great, in my opinion, to looking like ass. Not Rogue's ass, just ass. And speaking of Rogue's ass, it looks like MCU's Thanos snapped Rogue's ass out of existence. And I'm not sure if this is simply due to artistic incompetence or if someone voluntarily did this. Because someone at Disney decided that a female character, for some weird reason, can't be strong and sexy at the same time. Another complaint I have is regarding the voice acting. A number of the voice actors from the original series came back for the X-Men 97. However, they're not reprising their roles. So what exactly was the point of bringing them back? And why do some of these performances sound like AI? Again, I don't think this is on purpose because I think if you had actually used AI and trained the AI on the voices of the recordings from the original series, it would actually sound better. This is not how you honor the legacy of these actors or the producers, writers, and artists who made the original series. I especially don't like Wolverine's voice. That series made Wolverine my favorite Marvel character, and to this day, he's still my favorite character. I don't remember the voice actor's name, but his voice is what I imagine when I read a Wolverine comic. And this guy just sounds dumb. You know, if they weren't going to bring back the original actor, then they should have hired Stephen Bloom, who has voice acted Wolverine in a number of projects, both animated series and video games. But those are my basic complaints about what I saw in the trailer. It's possible that once they get into season 2 that things might pick up or they might address some fan complaints. But let's move on to one of the biggest controversial parts of the trailer and also information gleaned from interviews and articles. And that is, what's going on with Morph? Is Morph actually non-binary? The answer is probably yes. And people are looking at Morph who obviously they're going with the Changeling appearance. Now, for those who didn't know, Changeling was an X-Men character in the comics, and Morph was loosely based on the character. However, Morph was an original character created for the series. But it seems like now they are steering him more into the Changeling persona. Now, if you're wondering where the non-binary term came from, there are a number of articles that have stated that Morph is non-binary in this new series, but is there actually proof? Well, you'd have to go back to the Comic-Con panel from 2022, where the showrunner Bo DeMaio refers to Morph as themselves, indicating that their pronouns are they, them. So from there, we can say that Morph is non-binary. I'm pretty sure that's what it means when you use they, them pronouns. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments, but either way, he's some form of non-binary or gay or whatever. He's no longer just a male, which is what he was in the original series. Which brings me into kind of the main topic, which is, why are people pissed at the trailer? So obviously there are people who really like the trailer, people who felt a lot of nostalgia watching it, having watched the original series when they were kids. And I can understand that, but it's a bait and switch. The reason people are angry is because from the description of the series, from the title of the series, from how the showrunner and the different writers have talked about it, we were promised a return to the 90s, but it's obvious that we're going to see 2020's cultural ideology injected into the stories, despite the fact that it's supposed to represent the quote-unquote iconic 2020s, as that description said. And a lot of people who are for the trailer and are calling people who didn't like it toxic fans, their argument, which is the often used argument of this stuff needs to be updated to reflect the quote-unquote modern audience, which has never been a valid excuse. And in fact, I'm going to share with you the memo from the producers of the original series to the writers and artists as they were working on the first season. It reads as follows. More than most animated series, X-Men will rely on the creative contributions of writers and artists who have preceded the current development team. While we are responsible for the quality of the television series, we will be using many characters, images, and ideas that have been created by others. We respect their work and are heavily in their debt. The X-Men comic book series is a worldwide phenomenon. It represents a 30-year tradition of storytelling begun by creators Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and developed by dozens of writers and artists such as Len Wein, Chris Claremont, and John Byrne. Our ambition with this series is to continue that tradition in another medium, not to change it, update it, or pretend that we have found a new way to improve upon it. If you want to know the essence of the show, read the comics, which is the exact opposite message that we've been getting from the MCU. We do not intend for this respect of the X-Men legacy to discourage your integrity and invention. We look on the tradition we have inherited as a goldmine of inspiration, not a straitjacket. But please remember that much of our audience will know these characters and have definite expectations of the series. Our job in 13 short shows, in reference to the first season, will be to both satisfy and surprise the fans as we introduce the excitement and drama of X-Men to a whole new audience. And that's how it's done. A creative team that respects those who came before as well as the fans. They didn't look at the fans having expectations as toxic. Instead, they rose to a challenge and made an amazing show that's still remembered decades later. They even had a vision of what an X-Men story is. It says, X-Men is different from most animated action-adventure shows you may have seen or written. It is more about the lives of our characters, heroes and villains alike, than ingenious plots or non-stop death-defying physical jeopardy. It's not important whether or not a bad guy succeeds in blowing up the Pentagon. What matters is how Wolverine deals with the pain of losing a friend while trying to stop it. Use plot to showcase character, not the other way around. Which is not to say that X-Men will lack action, pace, or intensity. We want these shows to move fast and to be dense with dramatic crises. Action scenes will play like Terminator 2 on speed, but more often than not, the crisis is personal, not physical. Think of the famous Star Trek scene where Kirk has to let the woman he loves get killed for the sake of future lives. There was matchless dramatic tension created by a man watching a woman walking slowly across a street. The drama was inside the character. X-Men is a show of gray areas. We understand most of our villains, even sympathize with some. X-Men victories tend to be mixed blessings and are never achieved without a loss of some kind. Good guys fight with each other, have bad days, and are capable of being petty and intolerant. Not according to modern entertainment. One might even leave the X-Men in disgust and join the enemy. Through it all, however, our X-Men distinguish themselves by maintaining their values of friendship, loyalty, and personal sacrifice. Whatever the cost, they do what must be done. Notice there's nothing about social justice in there, because even though the X-Men do fight a society that hates and fears them, the show, like many shows of its era and shows especially regarding superheroes, is about the values that it stated: friendship, loyalty, doing what's right. It is in no way meant to be reflective of some political screed from a Twitter activist. And imagine any modern entertainment where the writers are actually willing to show a hero being intolerant. Because they can't do that anymore. All heroes have to be good, they always have to say the correct things, and all heroes have to be bad. Except not too bad. We can't show villains being too villainous, or people might suspect that the writers actually have some villainous tendencies. That's how retarded some of the discourse is regarding modern entertainment. These people knew what the X-Men were about. They knew how to tell the story to kids and adults alike. They knew how to respect the legacy of these characters and the writers and artists that came before, as well as respect the fact that fans have expectations, because a lot of us know the source material. They knew that the characters and their values were timeless, not something that needed to be updated for a modern audience. Twitter accounts like X-Men Updates are so lost in their echo chamber that I'm not sure they can even fathom what the average X-Men fan cares about. Now, at the end of the day, I want this show to be good. As with every single Marvel project, every Star Wars project, every DC project, and so on. I want to enjoy it. I want it to be as good as the original series. Obviously, I have problems with the animation and with the voice acting, but hopefully the story is really good. Hopefully it can maintain the integrity of the stories from the first 5 seasons. And hopefully the writers and their politics don't get in the way of writing a great story that resonates with a lot of people. There are some bad actors behind the creative process, unfortunately, and we're no strangers to Disney's intentions when it comes to injecting ideology into entertainment. But I'm going to give it a shot at least. At best, I'll enjoy it. And at worst, I'll make content out of how hilariously bad it is. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss out on a new video. Thanks for watching.